You think history is clean, but some secrets were buried so deep even the books don't dare tell. The year was 1821, a sprawling mansion in the heart of the United States. The president, admired by the public, feared by enemies, revered by his peers. But behind the grand doors, a darkness festered. Inside the mansion, his wife moved gracefully, the perfect image of wealth, status, and charm. Her sister, born into chains, an enslaved woman, quiet, observant, forced to live in the shadows of the family she called her own. The president's gaze often lingered where it shouldn't. No one dared question him, not his advisors, not his guards, not even the family. Whispers floated through the servants' quarters, quiet murmurs of fear, of discomfort, of impossible truths. The president had a secret, a twisted desire, and the sister, helpless, trapped, could not escape. Every morning she carried out her duties. Every night the mansion fell silent, except for the echoes of his footsteps. He watched her, he commanded her. She obeyed, knowing resistance meant more than punishment. It meant ruin. The wife, radiant and unaware, sometimes glanced at her sister with affection, but even she could not see the depths of the president's corruption. The family's perfect image was only a mask hiding 6 pregnancies that would soon shake the very foundations of this household. The mansion, grand and beautiful, became a prison of secrets, corridors that echoed laughter by day, echoed cries by night. No one knew, no one would speak. The darkness grew, quietly, invisibly. This was only the beginning, a story of power, betrayal, and tragedy that would leave the nation's elite trembling, and the enslaved sister trapped in an endless nightmare. Some secrets are so twisted, even history pretends they never happened. Life inside the mansion went on. The president smiled in public. The wife laughed at parties. Guests praised his wisdom, his charm, his leadership. But behind closed doors, the mansion whispered. The sister, the enslaved woman, moved quietly through the halls. She knew every eye in the house could not protect her. Every glance could hide danger. The president's obsession grew, not with power, not with politics, but with her. The one person who should have been family became his prisoner. The wife noticed little things, a lingering look here, a whispered instruction there, a sudden coldness in her sister's eyes. But she trusted her husband. She could not imagine the horror beneath her roof. The sister learned to hide her fear, to smile when ordered, to laugh when forced, to pretend the world outside the mansion was brighter than the darkness inside. The first night came. A command whispered in the hall. A hand grabbed her shoulder. She trembled. He whispered, "No one can know." Her heart pounded, her body froze. Fear became routine, a secret locked deep inside her. The president took what he wanted, and the sister, powerless, could do nothing. The mansion's walls absorbed it all, the whispers of fear, the echoes of suffering. No one spoke, no one could speak. The secret grew, feeding the darkness inside the house. 6 pregnancies awaited, 6 lives born from a crime no one dared name. And the wife, still unaware, still believing in the image of her perfect home. But the shadows were growing, and the first act of betrayal had only just begun. If you're ready to see how the first act of horror changed everything in this mansion, like, comment, and subscribe. The next final will reveal the terrifying first incident that shook the family forever. The first act of horror often hides behind the mask of normalcy until it shatters everything. The night was silent. The mansion slept, or so it seemed. Candles flickered in the hallways, shadows dancing on the walls. The sister moved carefully, every step measured, every breath quiet. She knew the rules, she knew the danger, yet fear clung to her like a second skin. The president appeared, out of nowhere, a shadow in the candlelight, his gaze fixed on her. No warning, no mercy. "You belong to me," he whispered. Her heart froze. Her body screamed to run, but where could she go? The mansion was a cage. The halls were traps. The eyes of the family could not see the horror unfolding in the dark. The first act happened. The walls held the sound of her cries. The corridors swallowed her pain. No one intervened. No one would. The wife slept unaware, trusting, loving, blind. Her sister's screams were muffled, invisible. The perfect image of family hid the perfect crime. The sister lay on the floor afterward. Tears streamed silently. Fear turned into resolve. She would survive somehow, but the first seed of darkness had been planted. The mansion itself seemed complicit. Silent walls, empty hallways, candles burning down to the wick, all watched and said nothing. 6 pregnancies, 6 lives stolen from innocence. The first act was done. The pattern had begun. The nightmare had only just started. Some pain no one sees is the kind that breaks the soul. Morning came. The mansion woke with laughter, clinking dishes, and polished floors, but the sister moved like a shadow, quiet, invisible, broken. No one saw her tears. No one heard her silent screams. Her body carried secrets no one could imagine. Her heart carried fear no one could soothe. Every glance from the president reminded her, every command, every whisper, a trap. The mansion became a prison of silence. Every step she took was measured. Every word was cautious. She hid in plain sight, smiling when required, serving when needed, silent when commanded. A ghost walking among the living. The other servants whispered in corners, "Something isn't right. Why does she flinch?" But fear kept them silent. The mansion punished those who asked questions. Night came again. The president's shadow loomed. The sister knew the routine, the fear, the despair, the helplessness. It became normal, a cruel rhythm she could not escape. Each day she mourned the children she had not yet carried. Each night she feared the next command. Her body was no longer her own. Her mind was a battlefield, her soul trapped in invisible chains. The wife remained blissfully unaware, trusting her husband, oblivious to the suffering within her own household. The perfect image of family hid the perfect crime. And so the days passed, silent, painful, hidden. The mansion watched, waiting, feeding on her fear. The darkness grew, and the first seed of horror blossomed into a nightmare that would leave 6 lives forever marked. If you want to follow this horrifying story and see how the repeated tragedies unfold, like, comment, and subscribe. The next final will reveal the 6 pregnancies and the tragic repetition of this secret torment. Some horrors don't come once, they repeat, over and over, leaving nothing but broken lives behind. The first pregnancy was a silent scream. The sister hid it in plain sight. No one noticed. No one dared ask. The second came. then the third. Each time her body betrayed her, each time her spirit shrank a little more. 6 times in total, 6 lives forced into existence by a crime no one could speak of. The mansion absorbed the secret like a sponge, walls holding whispers, floors hiding tears. She carried each child in silence, hoping, praying that one day someone would notice, that one day justice might come. But the president's power was absolute. The wife, still trusting, still blind. The household, still silent. Each pregnancy left scars deeper than the last. Each night the cries of her soul echoed in the hallways. Yet she smiled at meals, she bowed when commanded, she laughed when forced. The children grew, hidden, unseen, a constant reminder of the horrors they were born from. The mansion's perfect image remained intact outside. Inside, it rotted. Fear became routine, pain became routine, obedience became survival. Her body was no longer hers, her mind was no longer hers, but she survived, somehow. Hiding behind the mask of duty, walking through the shadows of the mansion, dreaming of freedom she might never see. The 6 pregnancies were not just numbers, they were 6 lives marked by darkness, 6 cries of innocence lost, 6 horrors buried beneath polished floors and painted walls. If you want to see how the wife begins to suspect and the tension grows inside this mansion, like, comment, and subscribe. The next final will reveal the first signs of suspicion and the storm that is about to erupt. Even the darkest secrets can't hide forever, and sometimes the walls themselves whisper. The wife noticed changes, small things, almost invisible. Her sister's nervous glances, a sudden silence at dinner, a hand trembling just slightly as she served. Questions bubbled in her mind, but she pushed them aside, trusting, loving, blinded by the perfect image of her family. The sister's fear was palpable. Every command, every glance from the president reminded her this secret could destroy everything. She moved like a shadow, hiding in plain sight. Whispers began in the servants' quarters. Eyes darted, doors closed a little too fast. The mansion itself seemed heavy with unspoken truths. The president remained charming in public. The wife's suspicions were tiny sparks, not yet flames, but tension grew with every passing day. Every shadow, every sigh, every whispered conversation, a ticking bomb waiting to explode. The sister's body bore the scars of 6 pregnancies. Her mind carried the weight of secrets no one could imagine. Her fear became a silent scream. Her sorrow became invisible chains. The mansion was no longer just a home. It was a battlefield of deceit, of power, of hidden agony. Every hallway echoed with the unspoken. Every room hid stories that could ruin the president's image forever. And the wife, she noticed just enough to worry, not enough to see the truth, not enough to stop the darkness growing inside her home. The storm was coming. Whispers would turn to suspicion. Secrets would threaten to unravel everything. And the sister, trapped, terrified, and alone, could do nothing but endure. Even the strongest walls can't hide the truth forever, especially when power is abused. The mansion's perfect image began to crack. The servants whispered more boldly. Glances lingered longer. Doors no longer fully closed the secrets inside. The president remained untouchable in public, charismatic, commanding, beloved by the nation. But behind the curtains, the house was a storm. The sister's fear spread silently. Every step, every glance, every command from him was a reminder. She carried the weight of 6 unborn lives and 6 already born. Each one a secret, a crime, a silent scream. The wife's unease grew. Little things, misplaced items, strange silences, faint cries at night she could almost, but not quite hear. The mansion itself seemed alive with tension, shadows stretching longer, corridors echoing the horrors no one could speak of. Even the walls seemed to watch. Outside, the president's reputation remained untarnished. No one knew. No one would know, or so it seemed. Inside, the sister lived in constant terror, every day a fight to survive, every night a test of endurance. Her body bore the scars, her soul carried the pain. The weight of 6 pregnancies, 6 stolen childhoods, 6 unspoken truths, it threatened to spill. One wrong word, one misstep, and everything could come crashing down. The mansion teetered on the edge, a house of wealth, of power, of secrets, and the darkness inside was growing, waiting for the moment when silence would no longer be enough. If you want to see how the hidden consequences start to unravel and the truth edges closer to exposure, like, comment, and subscribe. The next final will reveal the devastating hidden consequences of this terrible secret. Some secrets don't stay hidden. They fester, poisoning everything around them. The mansion carried its own heartbeat now, silent, heavy, full of whispers that no one dared speak aloud. The sister moved through the halls like a ghost. Every glance from the president reminded her she had no escape. The 6 children, each one a reminder, hidden away, unseen, their innocent cries echoing the horrors they were born from. The sister bore the burden of guilt she did not deserve, her body and mind trapped in a nightmare with no end. The wife's suspicions grew, a quiet unease in her steps, a coldness in her gaze she could not explain. Something in her household was wrong, but she could not name it. Even the servants felt it, tension in the air, fear in their voices. A mansion that should have been alive with laughter felt like a tomb. The president's shadow loomed over everything, publicly revered, privately feared. His sins remained invisible to the world, but inside these walls, they were undeniable. The sister's strength was fading, her spirit worn thin by 6 pregnancies, 6 hidden lives, 6 unbearable secrets. Every day she feared discovery, every night she prayed for survival. The mansion seemed to breathe with dread. Even the walls whispered of betrayal. Even the furniture seemed to carry the weight of unspeakable acts. The darkness was no longer hidden, it had taken a life of its own. And yet, the family remained outwardly perfect, a facade of wealth, charm, and respectability, but underneath, rot, pain, horror, waiting for the moment it could no longer be contained. Every secret has a breaking point, and some truths refuse to stay buried. The mansion trembled with tension. Whispers had grown louder. Eyes no longer glanced away. The shadows seemed to move with purpose. The wife's suspicions could no longer be ignored. A misplaced object, a lingering glance, a faint sob heard in the dead of night. Her heart tightened with a sense she could not name. The sister's fear had reached its peak. Every step, every breath, every heartbeat screamed danger. She had carried 6 lives in silence, and now the world around her seemed ready to crumble. The president remained outwardly calm, a public mask of charm and command. But the cracks in his household were widening. Every whisper threatened to expose him. Every glance threatened to undo his perfect image. Finally, a confrontation. The wife confronted her sister in private. Her eyes searched for truth. Her voice trembled with confusion and fear. The sister could barely speak, every word a struggle, every secret a weight she could no longer carry. The mansion held its breath, even the walls seemed to lean in. The shadows thickened. The truth had arrived. The horror could no longer be hidden. For the first time, the household felt the gravity of the president's actions. 6 pregnancies, 6 hidden lives, a family's image shattered in private, and the sister standing in the center of it all, weary but defiant. The moment was electric, a clash of fear, power, and betrayal. History itself seemed to pause. The mansion had seen it all, but this was the tipping point. If you want to witness the final aftermath and the legacy of this dark story, like, comment, and subscribe. The next and final next will reveal the conclusion, the fate of the sister, and the haunting legacy left behind. Some secrets die quietly, but this one refused to stay buried. The truth was finally out. The president's legacy, so carefully painted, so fiercely protected, now stood cracked, bleeding, exposed. For decades, he had been praised as a hero, a man of vision, a leader of the nation. But behind the marble statues, behind the smiling portraits, behind the history books polished to perfection, there was her. The woman no one spoke of, the woman he owned, the woman who was his wife's sister and the 6 children she carried for him. Now, in the final chapter of this story, the reckoning begins. The whispers had turned into voices, voices into rumors, rumors into accusations, and finally, accusations into truth. The documents were undeniable: letters, ledgers, birth records, and the testimony of the descendants who had carried this burden like a curse carved into their bloodline. The president's defenders tried to bury it. They always did. It's impossible. It's exaggerated. It's a smear campaign. But facts don't bow. Truth doesn't kneel. And the past, no matter how deep you bury it, does not stay dead. She had once been invisible, a shadow in the corner, a servant in her own sister's house, a body owned, controlled, violated. Her children grew up knowing silence more intimately than air. They were forbidden to speak of who their father was, forbidden to speak of their mother's suffering, forbidden to speak at all. But silence can only hold so long. Pressure builds, stories leak, and one day the dam breaks. A historian uncovered the first piece, a letter from the president written in his own hand, giving instructions for the birth of a child born to the enslaved sister of his wife. Then more evidence surfaced: handwritten notes, witness statements, and old diaries from the enslaved quarters revealing the truth. He had fathered 6 children with her, not out of love, not out of affection, but out of entitlement, power, ownership. And now, as history is rewritten, people ask the question that haunts the country even today: how many other great men hid monsters inside their legacies? How many stories just like hers remain buried under whitewashed pages? How many voices were stolen, silenced, erased? Her story is no longer hidden, no longer whispered, no longer buried. Her descendants, those 6 children's children, finally speak with a voice that history tried to deny them. They speak for her. They speak for the countless others like her. They speak for truth. And that truth stands tall. A president of the United States impregnated the slave who was his wife's sister 6 times, then forced the world to pretend she never existed. But now she exists again. Not as a footnote, not as a shadow, not as a rumor, but as the woman whose story will not die. The woman whose truth shattered the illusion. The woman whose silent suffering became the loudest truth of all. Her story ends here, but her truth will echo forever. If you believe these forgotten stories deserve to be told, if you think history should never hide the pain it caused, then make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. It helps this story reach more people, and it ensures that voices once silenced are heard again.